Hello, Stephen White, Trekboy89 from SteveArts89. I just did a recap of the first 5 episodes of Season 2 of Discovery, and leading up to the final episode of Season 2, I'm going to try and recap the second half of Season 2 after they removed the old showrunners and reshot a bunch of things and came back. Making some attempt to actually make sense of the show, which was put together by 3 different showrunners with different ideas about what was going to work, and so many plot holes and story threads that it's just fascinating to see how they try and put it all together, and in publicity try and sell the idea that they actually planned the whole series like this in the first place, because it's a bit of a mess. So I'm going to try and do episode 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's 8 episodes in one video. Okay, but it's mostly just the plots. Okay, so episode 6, The Sound of Thunder. Now, this was the one where Saru basically wanted to save his race. He found out in the last episode that his race does not need to offer themselves up to be killed when they reach a certain part of their development. It's actually just part of their evolution, and he finds out that actually the nature of the Bao and his race basically was actually reversed originally, and that they've been led to believe and put into this society where they give themselves up for death before they're able to evolve, so that they to keep the balance. So he goes down the planet. Basically, he's captured, but he manages to escape, and between him and Burnham, they managed to put out a signal similar to the signal the Sphere put out that caused his evolution, brought it on early. So he basically evolves his whole race, and they all discover that using the network of bowel communications relays and everything, that basically they don't have to die, that they are just evolving, but they don't have to go back to the way their culture was before, and they don't have to be a threat. So all that's resolved, and it's its own story. And what we see in regards to the Red Angel story is that the Red Angel is a woman in a biosuit. It's not an alien. It's not a saint or a god or whatever ridiculous ideas they were having Pike think it was in the original version of the first part of the second season. Now, episode 7, Light and Shadows. Burnham basically realizes she has to resolve her family issues, as Saru resolved the issues with his sister, who he left, and she thought he was dead. So she goes back to Vulcan. She confronts her mother. She finds Spock that her mother's been hiding, and Sarek is of course led to them, and eventually they end up giving him over to Section 31 so that they can actually fix his brain. But of course, she realizes what we all know, that they're evil, and Georgiou helps her with a plan to make it look like she overpowered her and escaped. So they leave, and we get to episode 8, If Memory Serves, which is where Spock and Burnham go to Talos 4, which is what Spock has been trying to communicate, because basically he mind melded with the Red Angel, which was out from a different time and out of sync of everything, and basically caused himself mental trauma or brain damage or something, and couldn't, without all his faculties, he couldn't comprehend exactly what he was seeing and why he was picked and how he was communicating with this being from another space, another time. And basically they fix him, they heal him, they fix his brain. Basically he's able to come back to being himself, a slightly unhinged emotional version of himself, who is actually finding this newfound emotion interesting, and he's finding himself feeling freed from not having to be perfect all the time, and it is a different place for him. Now, what else what happens in that? The Red Angel Yeah, okay. So Culber confronts Tyler. That's one of the smaller beast stories that's happening, who of course is also struggling with identity. And Discovery becomes fugitives when Spock and Burnham return. Now we get to episode 9, Project Daedalus. Now, Admiral Cornwall shows up, and she's there to let them know that there's a problem with Section 31. Section 31 has been in charge of a Starfleet computer called Control that basically helps them run the Federation and everything. And they have become far too involved in everything, and they have become a threat. And she establishes that Spock didn't kill the Doctors, and it was set up by Section 31. And Section 31, which is of course controlled by Control, is trying to take over Starfleet. And they're trying to get the data from the sphere because it's going to allow the AI in the future to develop. All that information is going to allow Control to develop sentience and basically kill all of the sentient life in the galaxy because they are so threatened by humans. So they have to stop all of that. They use Arium, who we saw earlier in an early episode was contaminated with a virus basically, and she attacks the crew and she tries to get the data, and basically they're able to connect with her for a moment, and she basically allows herself to be killed and commit suicide rather than continue on, because she wouldn't have been able to stop herself, and she would have eventually killed Michael and gotten the sphere data and everything. So we get to episode 10, The Red Angel, which is where we start off with the funeral for Arium, and we discover that Michael is the Red Angel because there's a bioneural scan, which was in the some of the file that Arium brought their attention to, that was in the sphere data. And also they got the data that was communicated to her from Control. So they've got a bit of insight there. And Leland reveals that Section 31 built the suit. Michael's parents were working for them and they were killed because of the suit. So of course she's angry. She attacks him, and it changes her whole perspective on her parents and their death. She blamed herself because she wanted to stay where they were so she could see a supernova. They were really there working on a suit because the Klingons are working on time technology, because apparently even though they have these crystals which are hidden in a monastery which apparently no one knows about, they still, obviously someone was working on something. So they were counterintelligence, blah, blah, blah. It's all quite convoluted. And we come to the big reveal at the end. They set up a scenario where Michael will die to attract the Red Angel. And of course, because she is the Red Angel, supposedly, because it's her, the Red Angel doesn't really fall for it until Spock stops him from rescuing her and she really does die. So then the Red Angel comes to save her, and we find out they trap her. They have a trap set up basically, because her suit is tethered to a particular time portal, wormhole, black hole, whatever, and it keeps getting sucked back into it. So they create a force field to keep her on Earth and in the present time. So they trap the Red Angel, her suit opens up, we find out it's her mother, which doesn't really make sense. They're saying, oh, well, the bioneural signal, it's similar because it's mother or daughter, but really it doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's where that episode ends. Now we get to episode 11, Perpetual Infinity, and basically it's all about Michael discovering the truth about her mother, that she was working on the suit, that when the Klingons attacked, she tried to go back in time an hour to save her family, and she actually ended up 950 years in the future, and she was coming back and affecting things and changing things. She rescued Michael. She gave Spock information to save Michael's life. But then she claims to not know anything about the red signals, which of course led them to her and led a lot of things in motion. So basically they're trying to work out how to save her, and of course Leland, who is now been possessed by Control with nanoprobes very much like the Borg, he attacks them. They have to release her because they can't hold her any longer. They release her suit's damaged, and they don't know what's going to happen with her. Leland gets half the data and from the sphere and runs off, basically. So now, episode 12, they have to find Leland. They have to stop him. They have to save the data and stop it from getting to Control. Stop Control from getting to it. So they need a time machine, their own time machine. They find out that the Klingons have the time crystals. So Pike goes to Boraf because there's a signal that appears there that leads them to the planet, and then it's revealed by L'Rell, and they resolve the story arc with them that he's a different person and that they're no longer involved, which leaves him free to get with Michael, like we care, but some people might be involved in that romance. Pike goes down. The monks who live in an altered reality, an altered relationship to time, and claim that the Klingons said that the time crystals are a myth and they never tried to develop them because I guess they didn't have the technology and didn't really believe in them. But the idea that they didn't weaponize them somehow is so hard to believe. But he's told that if he takes the crystal, he will see his fate. He takes the crystal, he sees his fate, which we all know. He ends up saving a bunch of cadets in a engineering disaster and ends up in a life support chair forever. Although he does end up going back to Talos 4 and spending a life living in his mind with Vina. So we know it's not really a sad ending, but he sees that ending and then has to live with that. Spock and Burnham find a Section 31 ship that the crew's been killed. They find one crew member, but he's been possessed by the Borg tech, which everyone thinks it's the Borg and that's going to be their origin, but it may not be. So he reveals that they're trying to get her because she is a variable they can't determine. That's because she's part of the Red Angel. Because what we realise is that she is actually taken over from her mother and she's actually involved in the signals, and it's not just her mother doing it. So she is a Red Angel, like I thought, like a lot of people thought in the first place. So they get back to Discovery and they are now having to confront Section 31, which is all their ships are coming after them. And here we get to the first part of the final episode, Such Sweet Sorrow, which is all one big lead up to the final battle in the final episode. Basically, it's all about Michael deciding that, I have to go into the future. The plan is she's going to go into the future with the suit. The ship's going to follow through the warp that's opened, and then it's going to be left in the future, separated from Control, so Control can't get to the sphere data. So that's the plan, and the whole episode is leading up to that. The crew deciding to go with her, saying goodbye to all their family, and basically setting up the final battle. And the only great part about the episode is we see Pike go back to the Enterprise and we see the bridge, which is a very interesting take on the ship. I've got a separate on the bridge and the ship. I've got a separate video on that, but I'm going to leave it here because that's where we're at. We're waiting for the final episode to see how they tie it all up, or how they just push it into another season with a cliffhanger, how it's going to go. But there's a big, huge battle on the Enterprise, which does look good. It doesn't look exactly like the canon ship, but it does resemble it enough that if you accept that this is an altered timeline in a different universe, Prime is not canon, you can kind of accept it. And they've retconned a lot of things, and they've made a lot of allowances and changes in tone, and I'm thinking season 3 can get better, but what we'd really want is a Pike series instead. But we'll see if the final episode leads to a Pike series, or if they're just going to end up in the future and do a Voyager Lost in Time Space kind of series. Who knows? But it'll be dropping tomorrow, so I'll be back with a video for that, and hopefully it'll be interesting. So feel free to leave any comments, subscribe, let me know what you think. I look forward to the final episode and talking about it. Thanks, bye.